As the Premier would have mentioned, the proclamation will have come into effect today, the 14th of May 2019. And just as a brief backdrop, the proclamation comes as a result of 4 years of constitutional reform that would have been undertaken under this administration. In 2015, through my ministry, we established the Constitutional and Electoral Reform Committee. And that committee's mandate was to prepare a draft constitution for the people of Angola. And the committee met over the period of time, and they would have put together, after consultations with the general public, after discussions, after reviewing all of the previous draft constitutions that had been prepared, and would have come up with a final draft constitution. They also would have looked at constitutions in the other overseas territories. Many of you may know that Angola has had the oldest constitution to date, 1982. And so there were a number of issues that the people of Angola have been asking to have addressed over the years. And some of those issues are now encapsulated in the proclamation. Once the committee had prepared the draft constitution, it had come forward and discussions had started between the ministers of government and as a government as a whole. Between 2017 and 2018, there were unavoidable delays, and those delays were resulted in the constitutional reform not being progressed as quickly as we would have liked. So when we were able to address it in 2018, we recognized that there were some key issues that we wanted to put in place ahead of the full constitution. So we prepared the draft order in council after discussions with various persons. We had communications between the Chief Minister's office and the UK and through the Governor's office in order to move forward on the draft order in council. And as a result of those discussions, a number of things were made clear. One, the wholesale constitutional reform will continue to take place and has continued to take place. The whole House has met in order to review the draft constitution that had been prepared by the Constitutional Committee. And I want to take the opportunity to thank the Constitutional Committee and all of its members for the hard work that they have done in getting us to this stage. And I must also say that the committee comprised all of the political parties that had an interest in sending a representative and being a part of the committee, as well as members of the general public. The committee's report has been discussed by the whole House, and we're in the process of taking the next step forward. Once the next steps would be for us to take it to the general public to be able to comment and review and discuss what is in that draft constitution coming out of the whole House committee. And thereafter, a committee will be selected to have the discussions and engage in negotiations with the UK in terms of the final constitution. But we can see that it takes quite a while. Previous administrations have all engaged or embarked on constitutional committees, and this is the furthest that we have been able to get for quite some time. And so we are very happy that we've been able to get to this stage. So the draft order in council that went to the Privy Council and was approved as the Anguilla Constitution Amendment Order has some key amendments to our existing constitution. And I should mention that these amendments will continue into the new constitution because these amendments arose out of the draft that had been prepared by the Constitutional Committee. So there's nothing new in this draft in the order in council and the proclamation that was not in the draft constitution that came to us from the committee. So one of the key amendments would be changing the title of our leader of government business from Chief Minister to Premier. And as we know, that will have been effective from today, the 14th of May 2019. A limit of 2 terms for Premier, establishing a procedure in the event the Premier is incapable of continuing in office due to illness or death. Number 4, removing the disqualification for ministers of religion and persons with dual nationality to seek elected membership. And as we know, this is important because many persons who would be born Anguillians who have traveled overseas as a result of Anguilla's history would have obtained citizenship in other countries, and our previous constitution would have prevented them from seeking office. This amendment removes that requirement. So you can, even if you have a U.S. passport, become a U.S. citizen, you are still able to be able to come back to Anguilla, to your country of your birth, and participate and play a role in the future of the country. It refers to us as Anguillians instead of belongers of Anguilla, and we know that currently we refer to ourselves as Anguillians. However, there was never any provision for that in our constitution, and now there is. It makes provision for at-large voting, and at-large voting is where we would have 4 persons that are elected from the island-wide. So the island-wide is now considered to be a district. The 7 districts, you will have the 7 districts, and each district continues to remain as is. But then all of the voters in each of the 7 districts together will make up the 8th district, which will be island-wide, or the at-large. And you can have any number of persons that will run at large, but the people of Anguilla will be able to choose only 4. And so the first 4 the first 4 with the most votes will be nominated or elected as elected members. It increases the number of ministers of government based on a formula, meaning that currently there are 4 ministers of government. Because of the increase to 4 by 4, which makes the total number of elected members 11, the number of ministers will increase to 5. And if it is in the future, we move towards dividing further boundary lines and creating 9 districts instead of 7, then the number of elected ministers or ministers of government will move to 6. So as of now, for 2020 elections, the at-large voting will be put in place, and the total number of ministers of government will be 5. Total number of elected persons across the island would be 11. And one of the key amendments as well is that it recognizes the Constitution as revised recognizes our grandchildren as Anguillians. And again, we know the Anguillan diaspora is quite far and wide, and as a result of that, we have seen where our grandchildren are not able to be recognized as Anguillians. And this constitution, the amendment to the constitution, addresses that issue. And so we have real situations, draws of grandchildren applying for belongership in Anguilla that were in the past rejected. And so we're currently in the process of revisiting all those applications and those rejections with a view to bringing them back in stream and reviewing and seeing whether or not, in fact, they do qualify now that the constitutional amendment has been changed. And it also means as well that prior to that, if you are not recognized as an Anguillian, you could not hold land in Anguilla that may have been inherited by your grandparent, etc., without holding an alien land holding license. And so now that has been taken off the table, and so grandchildren of Anguillians are considered to be Anguillians, and they're able to be in Anguilla, obtain land in their own right without the need of an alien land holding license and without requiring a work permit. Because believe it or not, grandchildren who were not Anguillians also needed a work permit to be able to work in Anguilla. And so those are key significant amendments that have been made to the Anguilla Constitution. The Elections Act was also part of the electoral reform, and we finally have a draft Elections Act that we're taking to the public. The first consultation will be this afternoon at 4:30 p.m. and it will be at the St. Augustine's Anglican Church in East End. And so the Elections Act will put into effect the at-large voting, where it would set out the details. So the Constitution provides a framework for at-large voting to vote island-wide, and the Elections Act provides the details as to how the voting will take place. And so the Elections Act will specify that the island-wide is an additional district, and it will set out how persons are able to run, how they're able to be qualified, etc. And so that consultation the first consultation is this evening, and we'll make announcements in terms of the other two consultations. One will take place in the central area of the island, and the other on the western part of the island. As part of the constitutional and electoral reform, we have also embarked on voter ID cards. And so I'm encouraging all persons to obtain their voter card. There is a barcode. So when you go to the Central Electoral Office and you ask if you are a registered voter, valid registered voter, you obtain your ID card. They will take your picture. They will confirm that you are on the voters list, and you will be issued with a card that looks similar to a driver's license. The card has a barcode on the top of it, so that and thank you, I'm being presented with, I hope you don't mind me showing you a picture. So here's a copy of the one of the ID cards that has recently been issued, and it's available for every registered voter. And so I'm encouraging all persons to attend the Central Electoral Office and pick up your ID card. And so, as I mentioned, there is a barcode, and when on election day, when they scan the barcode, your name will automatically come up in the system.
Office?
The office is by the old Inland Revenue, old police station barracks. So, however you get there, it's the old Inland Revenue building, police station barracks. And so, on election day, it will allow for a smoother and a quicker process. We know that during the 2015 general elections, some persons in some areas were actually in the line waiting to vote for about 5 hours or so. And this is intended to significantly decrease that. So if many persons obtain the ID card, when they go, as opposed to flipping through numerous pages to find your name, it's simply to scan and come up. And the idea is that that persons may be able to vote in advance as well. So there are key persons, essential services persons, and elderly over the age of 70 can actually vote 3 days in advance, and that's provided for by the Elections Act as well. I'm sorry?
Physically challenged.
Yeah, and physically challenged, and those provisions, it specifies which persons can vote. So there is provision for early voting for key people. So we will also be having more than one booth in the polling stations, and we know in the past there was only one, so we intend to have more than one so that more than one voter can vote at the same time. And all of that is intended to fast track the voting process on election day. We have not, I don't believe that we've had a meeting since the Labor Relations Act has been passed. So I just want to briefly mention that the Labor Relations Act came into effect on the 3rd of January 2019. And we've had months and in fact years of consultations in order to revise our labor code. Again, a very old piece of legislation that did well for its time, but it was time to be able to advance our labor laws based on what was happening in the country and where we are today. And so the Labor Relations Act sets out three key issues. It addresses fixed-term contracts, where we know there are certain persons that on one-year contracts repeatedly year after year. And the intent of that aspect of the Labor Relations Act is that after the first year, once you have to enter into a new contract for the second year, then you become automatically a permanent employee. And that permanent employee will be governed by the Labor Relations Act with all of the rights and obligations of a permanent employee. It ties into severance pay, which is also something new in the Labor Relations Act. And severance pay will kick in on the 1st of August 2019. It provides that if you've been working at an establishment for a number of years and the establishment closes and you're made redundant, not of your own volition, but something because of the company maybe not doing well, being sold to another entity, then you will have a calculation, severance pay calculated based on the number of years you have worked. It is not retroactive. It begins, the time starts to count from the 1st of August 2019. But we finally, after many, many years, have been able to make provision for severance. It's been on the books in many other countries for quite a long period of time. And so this is the first time it's being made available in Anguilla. And it also, the Labor Relations Act also makes provision for paternity pay and paternity leave, where you have a mother who may be on leave and has a newborn. It allows up to 2 weeks for a father to be able to spend time with the newborn as well. And so we find that that is a very important provision to allow that bonding time with parents. And I just want to, so that is the Labor Relations Act, and that is in full force and effect. And I just want to jump over very quickly to education to update you in terms of where we are. In terms of construction, we know that most of the schools have had significant damage as a result of Hurricane Irma. And we also know that as a result of that, we've had to do some demolitions at the schools, the Albina Lake Hodge, the Road School, many of the other schools. Morris Vanderpool was demolished in its entirety. And so we have been able to get quite far in terms of being able to start reconstruction efforts on these schools. The monies are being funded out of the UK £60 million grant that has been given to the government of Anguilla, and each of the schools has work that is intended to be done, if not already done on it. So the first school would be Vivian Vanderpool Primary School. Work has started on the music room and the cistern. At Morris Vanderpool Primary School, adjustments are being made to the final drawings and planning approval is being finalized. It is expected to be tendered in June for a 4-week period, and work is to commence in August of 2019. In relation to Aurelia Kelly Primary School, this is being tendered by the week of the 20th of May, and work is expected to commence in July of 2019. Valley Primary School, the final adjustments are being made to the drawings and planning issues are also being worked out. It's expected to be tendered at the end of May for a 4-week period, and work is anticipated to start in July of 2019. Adrian T. Hazel Primary School had a previous failed tender, and the tender will be reissued in June of 2019 for an August 2019 start. And the Albina Lake Hodge Comprehensive School, which is by far the largest project, its cost is $32 million US, and it is intended to encompass the entire relocation of the Campus A. And discussions we're currently looking at whether or not Campus B can actually be included on the site. But we know for sure that Campus A, with all of the necessary labs and classrooms and with the IT infrastructure and otherwise that we want to have for our children as 21st century learners. That importantly as well, the Albina Lake Hodge Comprehensive School will be adjacent to a track, a 400-meter track for use by the children of the school and the general public. And so that is an important advancement that we're making as well. The tender documents are being finalized. The school will be tendered nationally and internationally by the end of June 2019 for a September start. There will be 4 work packages issued, and persons can bid on as many of them as they choose. Consideration should also be given to forming partnerships or joint ventures when doing the bidding. And so I want to mention the community college. The first tender, the first part of the community college has been approved, and construction is anticipated to take place over the coming weeks. And so that is it for me in terms of this ministry right now.
Just responding to the question in terms of the Western Polyclinic and the Valley Polyclinic, the plans are being drawn up, discussions are taking place. The area where the South Hill Clinic is, just south of that particular facility. We were able to exchange some land with a local landowner, Mr. Fleming to be exact, where we would have exchanged portions of government land further down in the Spring Path area, I believe it is, for some land next to the clinic. That is expected to be cleared pretty soon so that the footprint of that building can be laid out and other adjustments to be made will be made. The Valley Polyclinic, as you know, will be placed in the area where the old Valley Health Center and the old dental unit was. The National Trust building will be removed from there. They are in the process of designing and finalizing the replacement building for National Trust that is supposed to be down on Crocus Hill, close to the old old courthouse, probably facing the ocean. So the discussions are taking place with respect to all of those projects. At the hospital, we are going to have the repairing of the roofs over the theater, the accident and emergency, and where the administrative staff is. We'll be looking to build storage facility for not only drugs, but all the other areas, food and beverage and so on and so forth. So there's quite a bit of work that is taking place at the moment. We should be able to begin construction a little later on this year, and I mention a little later on this year because, to be frank, it should have and could have been started a lot earlier, but as we go on, there are little technicalities that pop up from time to time, and it makes no sense to overlook them because going down the road, we may as well address them now, before we begin. So those are some of the little nuances that are taking place, but we hope to have everything sort of up and going. God forbid if we have another hurricane, the magnitude of Irma could send things back, but we intend to have quite a bit of construction work going on in these public projects. I mentioned some time ago in these press conferences about what we were doing in terms of setting up seeking approval for the 501c3 facility to raise the funds that is required for the building of the new medical complex. We have been approved by the federal government, the IRS. It has been set up. There is a website. We're going to have early next month, towards the end of this month, a meeting of the board of directors. From there, we will have an official launching. The website is up. It's being tested as we speak. So you can go on. It's called the Anguilla Healthcare Foundation.org, and you can read all about it there, and you can also donate. It's being tested so that after we make the official launch here in Anguilla and in the United States a little later on in the year, we'll be up and going. We have a calendar of events, of fundraising events that we're going to put on both here in Anguilla and throughout the United States. You'll be hearing more about that after the next board's meeting. So a lot of things are happening as we speak, and I am one who do not talk about the cake until it's baked and buttered, So, like my colleague said, he speaks about it when he has the flour. So in a nutshell, things are happening. We've just completed the final installation and the calibration and the final check for the CT scan. We are awaiting the part of the agreement where the GE would come in and have some on-site training for our radiology technicians. We're also looking at the possibility of having these scans read overseas. At this day and age, modern technology makes that available to us, you know. So quite a bit of activity is taking place. We are in the process of making arrangements because we have to do a lot of logistical changes and so on at the hospital in order to be able to have it functioning. I mentioned A&E as accident and emergency. We will have to relocate that in another area of the hospital. We will have to move the corporate office, hopefully in one of the buildings that are vacant, government buildings that are vacant at this moment, because it will be a temporary move while we repair the roofs on those particular areas. So there will be a little, I wouldn't say confusion, but an area where we're asking the public to be patient with us while we try to improve the overall conditions and services provided. So there's quite a bit of work that is being done, and we will continue to do so. As you can see, some of you who may have driven around there, the security wall has been erected, it's being painted as we speak. So that is going to assist. The new ambulances should be coming later on this year because they were ordered. Of course, the chassis are there and they will have to be built from scratch, so to speak, manufactured. And they are here. It was all sorts of emails and comments concerning the availability of ambulances. And from time to time, you know, one must, look back and see where we have come from and where we are. The issue with that is that we have 2 ambulances and they are up there in age. One was sponsored by Capjaluca and the other one was by NBA and CCB quite some time ago. And they needed, one was down, parts were ordered. The other ambulance, it was having some issues with respect to brakes. And of course, you know, ambulances, they travel at high speeds. So in order to prevent further catastrophe, it was in the best interest not only of the drivers and the people, the population at large, but to take it out of service and have it serviced properly and to use an alternative. That's all it was. I mean, you know, it was a van where the EMTs, they know what they're doing. I mean, of course, they put a stretcher and oxygen and a defibrillator and so on inside of a van, so to speak, so that in case there is an accident or a call for emergency services, something would be in place, an alternative would be in place. And again, in this day and age, with the various forms of media, you would think that the sky is falling, But we are going to keep moving along. I mean, what I call the irresponsibility of some of the folks in the media to talk about medicines and medications and expired drugs. I've said it before on in this press conference. If anyone would have gotten a prescription filled with expired drugs, I gave my number, and everybody knows my name, Bring it on, let's have a look at it. I wouldn't even go so far as to talk about Googling or finding out what the expiration on medication means, But again, as I mentioned sometime before, a lot of times, when you're in this business representing the people via the political sphere, there are all sorts of misgivings and other issues to stir up confusion in the minds of people, But again, we are here and we'll continue to work as hard as we can in the best interest for the vast majority of the people of Angola, irrespective of what is being said out there.
And
I'm going to go down a whole list of things very quickly. Vehicles, we have just gotten 4 new vehicles for the Inland Revenue Department mainly, and they will be utilized in the overall pool. That's an ongoing discussion. And we are in the process of procurement for more vehicles for the government service, as well as would include ministerial vehicles. Anglic is still very much under the Chief Minister's direction. Mainly has to do with the share issue, and there's some ongoing matters that we are dealing with, which involves ministers, the board, and so forth. The government will be dealing with those things. Water, we just will have the arrival of a new excavator on island. We've had a lot of frustration with people putting in for water lines and getting trenching. Trenching has been very expensive for the Anguillan, so we've decided in an effort to try something new to meet the needs of people. We've just purchased a new excavator. It should arrive on island today. I'm still thanking the public for highlighting the leaks. If you see any leaks, please highlight them. It helps a lot with the system. And if you know that you have an illegal line, please surrender your illegal lines. We have come up now to 24/7, and if we could do better, we'll go on to 25/8. But we are striving hard to keep the water going. A lot of people have expressed their satisfaction, and I'm just thankful to God that we have been able to achieve this level of success for the people of Anguilla. I've received calls from a lot of Caribbean islands asking for me, the minister, as well as the CEO for the water here in Anguilla, to travel. I received a call just an hour ago from Antigua, actually, inviting us to come and explain to them how we were able to bring this level of success to Anguilla. The Chief Minister is laughing. It's not funny. It's real. Anyway, new infrastructure. You heard the Minister for Education, and the Minister for Education is dealing with all of the infrastructural projects under education, and the Minister for Health is dealing with all of the infrastructural projects under health. This had to be done so, and I'm a little bit displeased, but I will not go into that today with the Anguilla public. But I said from the very beginning after the hurricane that the Ministry of Maiku could not take on all of the projects because it was just too much work for Maiku alone to try to manage. And that has been a part of the problem. People took a very long time to come to common sense that sometimes you have to know what your capabilities and your capacity is. I, as the minister, said from day one, the Ministry of Maiku could not handle all of the projects. One of the things that was left out by the ministers in their wide coverage was that we had some queries from contractors, and the Chief Minister called the governor, and we had a meeting, and it was agreed. And this is very important for contractors, especially to note, there will not be any requirements where you have to have $1 million deposit to bid on these jobs. This government fought very hard to get that done away with out of the requirements. There's about 30 projects that should come on stream. You heard the ministers giving the dates of May, June, and July. So everybody should be looking out to get involved in these in the bidding procurement process. Try to get some work. And we have been able, the Chief Minister worked very hard, as well as we as a government, to make sure that the requirement of doing the jobs without any upfront payments. So we have been able to get an agreement that there will be payments upfront when you commence the contract between 5 to 15% mobilization. So that is going to be very helpful, especially for small contractors. Please safeguard the monies. The airport is progressing. The Blown Point Ferry Terminal, that is progressing. And the CEO, Williams, along with the board, has been working on bringing back the night ferry to St. Martin. You'll hear more about that from them specifically. The Sandy Ground Jetty, that has gone that is going through the procurement process, tendering right now as we speak. The Chapel Hill, we've just revised the approved EXCO minutes from 2016, and that again, as I always say, the Chief Minister don't like to hear it. I'm waiting on him to give me the financing support to do the Chapel Hill. but all of the necessary requirements are in place to get the Chapel Hill project done. I want to thank Mr. Max Carty, who just acquired some land in that vicinity, who has called me to see how we can collaborate with the Chapel Hill project along with a proposed project he has for that area. And so some persons have been calling because there has been some activity there in that area, but that is not the government, that is Mr. Max Carty going forward with a project that he also has in that vicinity. The George Hill bypass is under the directive of Maiku. They are working on that. I want to thank the people at Vehicle Inspection. They have been doing a tremendous job. Craig, Patrick, Cecil, and Ziggy. We are also working on the taxi licensing new regime. We are still pushing forward with that. A lot of people who are moonlighting, doing illegal taxiing, I'm very concerned about it. It's a very serious matter, but we are in the process of trying to put the new board in place and the new legislation. We do want to congratulate the newly formed Taxi Association. The Chief Minister and the rest of us met with them recently, and we intend to forge ahead with the taxi transportation business. In fisheries, I've had a number of extensive requests from people outside of Anguilla. In particular, I would like to just talk about one gentleman who is an Anguillian living in London that has put forward a proposal to come to the government in the next 3 months. He's intending to buy 1 or 2 large fishing vessels and would like a license or MOU. Each of the vessels could carry up to 8 persons and stay out about 3 months with all the processing facilities. So that is something we will be talking about. Agriculture, I would like to thank the Department of Agriculture and the director for the last exhibition that they put on. In fire and rescue, we are looking forward to have the opening of the Combined Services building. We are trying to bring that project to a close, and soon the fire people will be able to utilize the building. And the new fire truck Joy, we are still yet to have the service to commission it. And lastly, I utilized the Love headquarters recently. Some people were asking if it is finished. It is not finished. It is partially furnished, and I still have some completion works to do on it, but it is available for anybody who wants to have a function of an outdoor nature. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Premier Banks. Again, congratulations on that title. For me, it's just brief. I want to talk about the positivity of the tourism season so far, from December all the way through the latest reports that I've received up to April. All the numbers on stay-over arrivals are up. Each month has been better than any year dating back to 1993. The day trippers are down, I think mainly because of the Dolphinarium not being available. But if you speak to the taxi drivers, they will tell you that the excursionists or the day trippers are actually being more productive for them. A lot of what we saw in the past that would have gone to the Dolphinarium didn't necessarily transfer a great deal of funds here in Anguilla. But the majority of day trippers over the last 6 months have pretty much spent the day throughout Anguilla rather than in just one spot. In sports, we've got our youngsters from primary school from the ages of 6 up until 18 who will go to Miami from the 13th to the 18th of June for a tournament there. There's about 53 of them that has been selected, and they've been selected on the times that is expected. It's almost as if it's a standard time at this event, and we've had 53 of them that is turned out to be in that bracket. So with limited training, and no disrespect to primary schools or high school sports, it says that our youngsters are naturally gifted. And with some extra training, the chances are you'll see further development. And as primary schools and high school sports goes forward, there'll be a greater deal of interest because it means it's an opportunity for them to move further afield. And internationally, Hassani Hennis continues to make us all feel very proud. Apart from representing us well at the Commonwealth Games last year on the Gold Coast in Australia, he came back and won the John T. Memorial race here in Anguilla. And Anguilla has been trying for 19 years to find a winner, and he is our first winner. He's currently with a team in Australia and has been doing very well indeed. His challenge, obviously, is now a bike, lack of a bike. And from the Ministry of Sports and with support as well from Social Security, we intend to make sure he's got a bike by weekend. He has another race coming up this weekend. I spoke to him this morning. He is very appreciative of the support that he's getting, obviously with the bike, but also the support he gets on a regular basis from followers here in Anguilla. He intends to come back to Anguilla for the John T. Memorial race, go back to Australia after that, and then on to China with his team that he rides with in Australia. So hopes are looking very, very upward for Hassani. And again, we will, with limited support, I would say support regarding a track or even the facilities available to us, it does not stop our youngsters from really achieving. But as time goes on and as we can build on those facilities, we'll be able to give our athletes not just the moral support, but also the physical as well as financial support. Thank you very much indeed.